Mental health statistics show that 1 in 3 South Africans will experience mental illness at some point in their lives. Tomorrow marks World Mental Health Day, and there is a need to create even further awareness around quite a sensitive and sometimes taboo subject matter. Well, today in studio we have Cassey Chambers, who is the operations manager at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, known as SADAG. She's here to tell us more about what your rights are as a person who has been diagnosed with a mental illness, and what are the rights of those affected by the actions of those living with mental illnesses. Interesting topic, Cassey. Thanks for joining us here on the program.
No, thank you very much for having me.
I was looking at statistics. It basically shows that 1 in 3 South Africans will experience mental illness. I mean, this must have a major effect on our society.
It does. You know, it affects so many more people than what we believe. If you imagine someone across from you at the office, someone standing in the shopping queue with you, someone standing in this taxi queue is more than likely to have a mental illness. When you look at the stats of 1 in 3, it affects a lot more people than other illnesses, yet there isn't enough focus, or it's not highlighted as much as other medical illnesses.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is just to create awareness that this is a real medical illness that requires real treatment. But with treatment and support, you can lead a very high-functioning, normal life.
When we talk about a mental illness, what falls into that? Because, I mean, automatically when people say mental illness, you start thinking bipolar, you start thinking very severe mental illnesses. But there are a wide range that fall into that category, I imagine.
There is, and I think, again, the idea of a mental illness is that someone is crazy or unstable or dangerous. When you're looking at who can suffer, there's illnesses like depression, anxiety, social phobia. Trauma or PTSD is also a mental illness, as well as substance abuse disorders. So there's a big umbrella of different mental health issues that anyone could suffer from.
Now, obviously we talk a lot about these things, and I don't think we can talk too much about it, because people need to know that there is treatment, that they can be looked after. But that's the treatment issue. Let's talk about the rights issue. What rights do people have with a mental illness?
I think so many people think that if you have a mental illness that you're less of a person, so therefore you don't qualify for the same rights. And you get the same rights just as anyone else. You also have the right not to be abused or exploited. So if anyone is trying to take advantage of you or exploit your mental illness, that is an infringement on your rights. You also have the right not to be discriminated against because you have a mental health issue. So whether it be at work, whether it be at home, whether it be even opening an account, I think it's really important for people to know that they do have rights and they can access them. And sometimes it's always easier if you think that you or a loved one has a mental health issue, they can contact SADAG and we can send them the whole list of rights so that they're fully aware of what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So many people are spoken to or spoken at when living with a mental illness. What we're trying to do as SADAG is to encourage them to become an expert in their illness. So finding out and learning as much as you possibly can about your own illness.
I mean, the reality is that you've got very high up professionals that are living with a mental illness who I imagine are aware of their rights, but it's people that perhaps are not aware of their rights that are being abused and exploited at a time like this, including something like this. And I don't even know about this. Apparently there's a major procedure to follow once a person who attempted suicide survives. Go through this. What are we talking about here?
So if someone is suicidal or they've attempted suicide, obviously they need emergency care as soon as possible. So getting them admitted into a hospital so that they are safe. If they're a danger to themselves or to others, they have to get treatment. We know that the leading contributing factor to suicide is undiagnosed or untreated depression.
Okay.
So it's very important that they get treatment before it's too late. They may have to be in a hospital, and what we have in South Africa, we have a 72-hour assessment where patients have to be admitted and reviewed by a team of professionals to really assess their mental well-being and making sure that they get the right intervention and steps in place.
Yeah. There's another side of the coin, though, because we talk about the rights of people living with mental illnesses, and obviously we've seen many court cases that come into play, and mental illness is given as a reason for their behavior, and perhaps they get a lighter sentence or whatever it may be. But on the other side, there are people that live with the repercussions of people that have mental illness and perhaps don't seek treatment. I think there was an incident recently where where a person threw a window through a car, if I'm not mistaken, and it hit a child. But this person was seen to have a mental illness, and I think they weren't really persecuted because of it. What rights do we have against people that don't treat themselves, that have mental illness?
I think it's a very controversial issue. I think in the last couple of months we've been seeing mental illness used as an excuse for criminal activity. When actually, if you refer to any of the stats, there are less people with a mental illness that actually do a crime than people who don't have a mental illness. So it's that misconception again. I think often it is used as a way to get a lighter sentence, or part of the bargaining deal that lawyers would get involved in. So it becomes very difficult. But yes, you do have rights against someone who doesn't want to get treatment, and you can actually do involuntary admission, where you can go through the procedures to get them admitted against their will, if you feel like they're a danger to themselves or to others. And I think that you should also learn about what those steps are and how to get that help, so that everyone is empowered and that we don't see any of these tragedies from happening.
Very quickly, and just to wrap it up, what would you say is the most prevalent mental illness in South Africa right now?
Well, we know from the calls that we get to the call centre is definitely depression. Undiagnosed and untreated depression is a big issue.
And that can lead to very, very severe repercussions. So if you feel anything, and go onto that SADAG website, phone SADAG. I know I spent a day with you at your call centre. It's an unbelievable organisation that will help you. They'll give you all of the advice that you need. Just give us those numbers again. I'm not sure if they're there. It's on the screen. I'm not even looking at the screen. So that's the number, 0800 121314. Is that right?
Yes, 0800 12 13 14.
Excellent.
We also have all of our information on our website at www.sadag.org. And especially for World Mental Health Day, we have various events happening throughout the country, so everyone can get involved, including our Moving for Mental Wellness event tomorrow in Joburg.
Excellent.
So get involved.
Thank you, Cassey. Always a pleasure talking to you. Cassey Chambers is the operations manager at SADAG. Get hold of them if you need help, please. Let's take a break, and we'll see you after this amazing music coming your way.